very popular horticulturist alongside Sarah Dash,
yes.
a man who is actively campaigning for community gardening. And his name is Amos Taylor. He's a good friend of this program. Amos, I've missed you. How have you been?
Oh, just fine. Enjoying myself immensely, traveling around the country, working with community people.
Exactly. What does that mean, community gardening? How does it work? What are the rewards, the benefits, the satisfactions of what is called community gardening?
Well, community gardening is usually a group of neighborhood people getting together who have very little space or no space at all, and decided they want to take over property that's not being used for gardening purposes, and they usually grow food or flowers or things that enrich their lives.
You feel it's becoming more and more popular now across the country, in every area?
I think there's about 35 million households involved around the country doing it, and I travel from coast to coast in north and south, and I find people everywhere of many ethnic groups involved, and I enjoy them immensely.
You feel you've been responsible for many people getting into the activity known as community gardening?
The doctor had told me that I was staying in an apartment too much, and so when they organized this garden club, I said, that is the very thing that I need to be into, and I come out here twice a week, and
Flower in America, would you say?
I would say so, yes.
How about a feeling from Helen? Helen is here to talk about a marvelous book, but what's your feeling, Helen?
Well, I'm just interested in what Amos said about orchids. I think now that we live in New York, I think an orchid, you're talking about orchids in the jungle, I think probably it could grow very well in New York, the concrete jungle.
Yeah, they do pretty good. They have an orchid society in New York, and there are a few...
Really, do they?
Yeah, there are a few people down in the village who actually
Growing
are
them in
selling...
apartments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who have figured out how to do it in apartments.
These people don't have
work.
finicky ficus. Well, or is it fici?
I really don't know. I have to ask them.
Amos, people like to hear about people. What was the beginning of your beginning in gardening, in flowers and vegetables, the beginning of the beginning?
I think I learned from my dad. He
Really?
He was a farmer who moved to the city, and he used to grow things in the backyard. We lived in a brownstone in Brooklyn.
This wasn't the house, was it?
I wish it was. That's Sitka, Alaska, by the way. That's up in the mountains there, where some people have a community garden on the State University in Sitka, Alaska.
Fabulous.
Okay. I don't know, let me take a... that's California. That's some of the Hmong people in California who are actually growing some food there. Kansas. That's a fairly large community garden in Kansas, about 2.5 to 3 acres. That's Bronx, New York. I spent a few years up there in the South Bronx working with about 14 groups.
So did I when I was born.
Had a lot of fun.
We have a community garden on Riverside Park, near where I live.
93rd, 94th Street?
Yes.
Yes.
Where were you born
Did
here,
you-
Johnny?
did you
You're
start
from where?
that?
Oh, I was born in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
4th Street, Brooklyn.
Gotta have somebody from
I'll
Brooklyn
not
on every...
forget that big gas tank
On
around
every
the corner.
pedal. May we ask, do you want to mention who's sponsoring your crusade across the country now?
It's sponsored by the Glad Wrap and Bag people, and the co-sponsor is the
For
American Community
economy,
Garden
nutrition, and also family fun. We found that it really pulls people together. And another thing that it does is it really revitalizes neighborhoods and develops a certain pride that hasn't really been around for a long time.
Well, some people have green thumbs, some don't. I don't have a green thumb, but I can work in the garden.
Wow, so we picked the crop, we harvest the crop, and then we...
Ralph Snodsmith on the radio?
Yeah.
More people listen to that than rock and roll.
Ralph is a
Flowers,
fantastic man.
Yeah, it is.
Well, that's a big thing. Excuse me, but that's a big thing in California. You know,
Yes.
they have a lot of garden, even parties for these gardeners, you know, to go to. And one time I went, you know, I didn't know much about flowers, but it was so beautiful. And there's so many plants and so many different flowers and so many different kinds of orchids.
Do you suggest certain flowers, Mr. Taylor, for certain occasions, let's say like Mother's Day, birthdays, anniversaries? Anybody ever ask you what goes best on what days?
You mean as far as retail sales is concerned,
Yeah.
or what gets you across? What are we talking about?
Both ways.
Flowering plants that have an aroma to it, such as roses, which are coming in now. And roses are probably the best sold cut flower going because of their appearance and of their aroma. That's always very popular, no matter what the occasion may be.
Then they say the word American rose. That makes it sort of a patriotic symbol.
Absolutely.
Right?
You know, if you buy an American rose, you know, you're just being very patriotic, and you're also advertising about the great gardens that we have.
I started a little earlier. It was fun. It was hard work, though. Tomatoes, they're the easiest. I come in here and stay about 4 hours.
Is an orchid the most expensive flower? An orchid? A one of the most expensive?
Yeah, there are about 150 varieties of orchids.
Because I mentioned Walter Winchell. He had a thing in his column. He would say, an orchid, too.
Yeah.
An orchid, like that's the most elegant you can get is an orchid. And there was a song, An Orchid to You, written by Gordon and Ravel years ago.
Yeah, my
Yeah, I
feeling
remember that
is
song.
Remember that?
Yes.
Why? What makes an orchid...
they're that rare, that unusual, and that difficult to grow. And you find them mostly in the jungled areas as their natural habitat. And it requires a certain kind of environment. And in captivity, as I like to call them, which could be in the botanical gardens or in the greenhouses, you have to create the type of
Good spot.
Is that going on?
It's the tender part. And all I want is to get me some greens, get in the pot with the rest of them.
So it's got to be something like that.
There it is.
Is the gardener's gardener. While most people are planting 5 by 10 plots, Nuna is plotting to plant more gardens.
We did a lot of door-to-door knocking and asking people, would you like to be involved in an inner-city garden? A lot of people thought we were crazy because this particular spot was a garbage dump. And I think it was something like 15 years of accumulated, you name it, it was in here. And so a lot of people thought we were crazy, but May 6, 1982, we had 50-some people out here cleaning.
After the first 3 years, the garden management becomes more of a neighborhood responsibility. The Civic Garden people move on to the next project. Here in East Price Hill, the established neighborhood garden at Bassett and Hawthorne has replaced a vacant eyesore. And in Mount Auburn, on Channing Street, the newest neighborhood garden is being terraced from a sloping lot.
Well, there's land acquisition, who you're going to lease it from, and so forth. Then there's the land itself. A lot of the vacant land has had buildings on it previously, making the land pretty rough and unusable. Either topsoil would have to be brought in or mulching techniques. The soil has to be built up then over the next 3 to 5 years before it's really usable and really good soil for gardening.
So if you pass by a neighborhood lot this spring and notice a lot of gardening activities, just remember, there's a lot more growing here than just vegetables.
About June, everything is real pretty. It's really, we have flowers going up and down the walk and around the trees. It's really pretty.
Very good. Good, very good.
Enjoying to see it grow. And then knowing that I can have my own vegetables, know it's fresh.
Videotape or film clip someday and really do a job for us, would you, Amos?
It would be my pleasure,
Is that a
sir.
great man? Anybody who deals in flowers is a beautiful man, right, Sarah?
Well, God made you, so I must be good.
God made him.
God has made me love him. God made me